Hello, welcome to our second lesson in this TOEFL iBT preparation course with me, Aldi. And in this lesson today, we are going to take a look at in details about the reading section of the TOEFL iBT. First of all, let's take a look at our lesson goals for this lesson. So the first one, we're going to have an overview of the reading section. And then after that, we will discuss some general tips that can help you to prepare yourself for this section. And then moving on after that, we will have analysis of the question types in the reading section of the TOEFL iBT. And finally, of course, the key strategies to answer those questions. Are you ready? Let's start. I almost forgot one more thing at the end, which is the explanation of the performance descriptors. And remember, performance descriptors means the scoring system that ETS uses to show your score at the end of the test. So let's go. Okay, so the first one, overview of the TOEFL iBT reading section. So the reading section is the first section in the iBT TOEFL test. And it's trying to assess your reading and understanding on materials that are usually used in an academic environment. And this, for examples, are excerpts from university level textbooks, which is about a variety of different subjects, from the sciences up to arts or humanities subjects. So also all sorts of science subjects, that is, of course. And as you can see there on the right hand side of the screen are examples of how the reading section directions look like. And you will be able to see this at the beginning of the reading section. Okay, now more about the TOEFL iBT reading section. So you will get 3 to 4 passages with 10 questions each. Here's an example of how the passage looks like. And if you remember from our previous lesson about the general characteristics of the sections or the formats, then you will remember, hopefully, that there are around 700 words in the passage, making it pretty long. And from one passage, you'll get 10 questions looking like these 2 examples. And there are 2 formats of the reading section: the short format, which consists of 3 passages, 3 of this kind of reading, and the long format will have 4 of these. And the timing, of course, will be different. The short one will be shorter, which is 54 minutes to be exact, and the longer one will be 72 minutes. Now, almost all of the questions will be worth 1 point, except for a couple of types of questions that will have more than 1 points. We will see those types later. You may skip the questions and you can return to any of the questions if you'd like to revise your answer, or if you'd like to edit or just simply check if you have answered the questions or not. Okay, now there will be a review feature in the reading section of the TOEFL iBT, and as you can see from an example of a snapshot of the review feature, you'll be able to see all of the questions shown, and you will be able to also see which ones you haven't answered. All right, and you can click it and go back to each of the questions accordingly. You'll also be provided with a clock on the screen. It will show you how much time you have to complete the section. Now, here are some useful tips that can help you prepare for the reading section. First one is, do not panic if you are not familiar with the topic. All right. For example, let's say that you are a student from the humanities major, in college. And in your reading section of the TOEFL iBT, you got science topics. Well, don't worry and don't panic, because they have designed the questions so that all of the information you need to answer those questions will be in the passage. All right. And even if there are technical words that are specific to a certain subject or major, they will provide you with a glossary or a definition for those terminologies. And before the questions, you should read the first paragraph and last paragraph of the passage to get them an idea. We'll get into more details about that later. And don't forget to manage your time. So if you do the math to answer 30 questions in the short format within 54 minutes, that will roughly average into 1.4 minutes per question. So that should be a good measurement of how long you should spend for each of the questions. And when the time is up, or if the time is up, you should consider guessing and moving on. And you need to use your focus to the next question or the next section. All right, now let's see the question types in the reading section. So in the reading section of the TOEFL iBT, you will get two general types of question. The first one is the basic information and inferencing question. And in this category, the first one will be what they call as the factual information question. There will be 2 to 5 questions for each of the passage for this type. And then there will be negative factual information questions, which you can get none, up to 2 questions per passage. The inference question, 1 to 2 per passage. Rhetorical purpose questions, vocabulary questions, reference question, sentence simplification questions, which can be either none or 1 per passage. And then there will be the insert text question. And those are the 8 types in the category of basic information and inferencing questions. So don't worry if you don't have any idea what these terms or names mean, because later we will discuss it in more details. Now, the second category of the questions will be what is called as the reading to learn type characteristic or general type of question. And there are 2 types of this category, the prose summary and fill in a table question. And both of them will appear at least 1 per passage, but they are interchangeable. So if you get prose summary, you will not likely to get the fill in a table question, and vice versa. If you get the prose summary, you won't get the fill in a table. All right, moving on. Now, let's take a look at more specific into each of these types. The first one, the factual information question. You can see the example question on the right. So this type of question is trying to ask you to identify factual information that is explicitly or clearly stated in the passage. Okay, and the way they word these questions are as shown here in the example. So it will look like this for the most time. So according to paragraph 2, for example, camels were important because they so and so. All right. And then it can also be phrased or worded as you can see in the examples, like according to the paragraph, something occurred because so and so, or why did something do something. All right, so basically it's asking for you to identify a specific piece of information from the passage, which is clearly or explicitly stated. Okay, that's about factual information. Now, the second type is what's called negative factual information question. And you can see the example given there. And this type of question is asking you to verify which of the information from the option is true and which is not true or not included in the passage. All right. So this type of questions usually will have the word not or except, as you can see in the example. So here in the example, you can see all of the following were social effects of the new metal technology in Africa, except. All right. So they even capitalize those signal words so that you can directly identify what you need to do. Okay, and there are two common ways they word these questions, as you can see there. Which of the following is not true? And the author's description of something mentions all of the following except so and so, just like the example here. All right, now moving on to the third type, which is the inference question. The inference question is asking you to identify an argument or an idea that is not clearly stated or explicitly stated in the passage, but there will be information or ideas that will help you to conclude that information or idea. All right. So that's why they use the word infer, suggest, or imply. So these three words are usually the word they use to indicate this type of question. All right, as you can see in the examples here. So what can be inferred, and what do these things suggest about something from the passage? All right, the fourth type, the rhetorical purpose question. So as its name already kind of hinting there, it will ask you to identify the reason, the purpose, why the author, the person who writes or who creates the text, provide a certain or particular information, okay, in a specific place or manner in the passage. All right, and it can also sometimes ask you to identify how one paragraph connects to the following or the previous paragraphs or several other paragraphs. And the wording for this type of question is usually using the word why. So why does the author mention something, or why does the author compare something to something else in the passage, or the author discusses something in paragraph 2 so that so and so. Okay. All right. The fifth type, the vocabulary question. This one is pretty clear and straightforward. So it will ask you about a specific item of vocabulary. All right. So here's an example. The word profound in the passage, already highlighted, is closest in meaning to A, B, C, or D, or these options. Okay, so it's clearly asking you to find out which from the words in the options are the best or the closest synonym to the word highlighted. And yeah, the questions will look like this, and it may also be worded like the examples here. All right, the sixth type, the reference question. The reference question will ask you to identify what a pronoun or other grammatical reference words mean or refer to. Okay, so here's the example. The phrase, this process over here means what, okay, or refers to what in the passage. The word will always have, the question will always have the word refers to indicate this type of question. But a little bit of an additional and bonus information for you. The reference question is getting less and less common in the TOEFL iBT reading section. From several past official TOEFL iBT tests, the reference questions were hardly ever used anymore. So, all right, the seventh type, the sentence simplification questions. This question will ask you to choose from the option the best sentence that can restate the idea in the highlighted part in the passage. All right. So restate here means to say something or express the same idea using different words. Okay. Now, the wording for this question is usually going to be like this. Which of the following best expresses the essential information in the highlighted sentence? Okay, now the question even provides you with a clue. So you shouldn't choose a choice or an answer that can change the meaning in important ways from the highlighted sentence, or omit or leave out or not mentioning essential information from the part. All right, moving on to the eighth type. Now, the eighth type is the insert text question. And as the name already explains itself, it will ask you to insert a text into the parts indicated in the passage. So the wording for this type of question is usually using this type of phrasing. So look at the 4 squares in the passage, black squares, and then you will see a sentence in bold, like the example here, and then you will be asked where would the sentence best fit. All right. So on the computer that the test provides, you'll be able to click on those black squares to indicate that you put your sentence there. And also the sentence will appear in the corresponding place or location in the passage when you click it. All right. The 9th type, the prose summary question. So this is one of the 2 types that can have more than 1 point. So you can see there, it's worth 2 points for this example here. And it's trying to see whether you can understand and recognize the major ideas or the important ideas and information in a passage. So you will be required to select the main ideas or major ideas, and you need to select the main ideas or major ideas from the 6 given choices. And among the 3 correct choices, there will be other 3 either minor ideas or ideas that are not in the passage. So you again normally will have to choose 3 from 6. And in terms of the scoring, you will get 0 point if you can only identify 1, or of course if you couldn't identify any of the major ideas. Okay, now you can still get 1 point if you can correctly identify 2 of the correct choices. and you get the complete 2 points if you can identify all of the 3 correct options. And that is all. This is usually the way they word the questions, as you can see. So it's pretty long, and it will come with the statements, the ideas, the option, and sort of a title or a subtitle given on top of the options. Okay, now the 10th type, the last type of question in the reading section. It's the fill in a table question. Yes, you will be asked to complete a table. So you will see some options, and then when you want to answer the question, you need to drag those options into the correct row or a column or table provided on the screen of the computer. And your points will also depend on how many of the information you can answer correctly. Okay, so for example, you can get 1 point for 3 correct options that you can identify. You can get 2 points for 4 of the correct options that you categorize in the column or in the table, and of course 3, 4, 5. It may, very rarely, however, it may give you more than 3 points if the options or the choices are more than what's given for questions that's worth 3 points. And the typical phrasing will be like this: complete the table below to summarize information about the 2 types of art discussed in the passage. Match the appropriate statements to the types of art with which they are associated. And this question is worth 3 points. Okay, so those are the types of questions. Now, what should you do to prepare yourself before you take the TOEFL iBT, especially the reading section? Let's take a look. So, for tackling the reading to find information, you need to practice your scanning skill. All right. Now, scanning skill will help you to find specific parts or items in the passage that you need to answer the question. Okay. Now, here's an example. So let's say you are trying to answer this question. So you need to find the specific information about camels, right? So camel will be the keyword. So you need to scan for camel, and that's where your scanning skill will be needed to locate the keyword in the question into the reading passage. So how do you do that? Well, it will look like this. So you will be reading fast, ignoring unknown or difficult vocabulary until you find the keyword that you need, which is, there you go, camel. So when you're scanning, you're not exactly reading to understand the information, but you're reading to find specific thing, in this case, the keyword camel in the passage. All right. You need to practice this frequently so that you can do this at an increased rate and faster and more fluent, so that you can answer the questions also faster. Okay, now for reading for basic comprehension, of course, you cannot escape the importance of having enough vocabulary knowledge. Okay, and so you need to invest your time and effort in improving your vocabulary bank. especially academic vocabularies that will be used in TOEFL iBT reading section. And you can do this by using flashcards, as you can see in the example. And you need to also practice your skimming skill. Now, skimming is slightly different from scanning. So scanning, you're reading fast to find specific information. Skimming, on the other hand, is reading fast to get the main idea from the whole passage, okay? The main point from the whole passage. You should also practice identifying the meaning of a word that you don't know from the passage by using the clue from the sentence where that word is located. So you usually can guess the meaning of the unknown word by looking at the sentence around the word. That's what's called the context. All right. And not just for getting the information from the reading, but this technique can also help you in increasing your vocabulary. Also, pronounce reference. Remember, when you get the reference question, you need to identify what the pronouns refer to. So you should practice doing that before you take the test. For the inference type of question, you need to practice making inferences and drawing conclusion from this what is that hidden yet clearly implied information. Okay. And beside that, you need to also focus on improving your skill for reading to learn. And that includes practice identifying what the type of the passage is. So there are many types of passage or reading texts. Sometimes it aims to classify some things. It aims to show cause and effect relationship about two objects or events. Sometimes it can compare, contrast. It can describe a problem and its solution, giving description, telling a story, and so on. So you need to identify these different types, because in the TOEFL reading section, the questions will be pretty different when the types are also different. And you need to also practice organizing information in a passage, okay? And you can do this by first creating an outline, okay, to distinguish or to differentiate between major and minor ideas. This is very important for the summary question, the one that's worth 2 points in the end of each passage usually, okay? And then for classification or categorizing passage, you can practice by creating a chart and place the information in each of the category or each of the column in a table that you create. And the third one here is for process description passage. So you can practice that dealing with this type of passage by creating an outline of the steps in their correct order. Okay, and don't forget paraphrasing. So paraphrasing is a very important skill. Paraphrasing means to express the meaning of a statement with different words. Okay, so this is related to one type of the reading question, which is the sentence simplification question. So it will help you to answer that. But more importantly, paraphrasing is also very essential for in all of the sections, especially in the speaking and writing. Okay, so in your writing section, for example, if you don't know how to explain something in one way, if you can, if you know the concept of paraphrasing, you'll be able to express that idea using different words, which will be very beneficial for you. And you can practice improving your paraphrasing skill by what is that? By doing this with a passage, trying to, by paraphrasing or restating individual sentences from a passage, and then moving up to paraphrasing an entire paragraph using your own words. Okay, now here's an extra tip that will also be beneficial for you to prepare. So get used to reading on a computer screen. So remember, the TOEFL test, TOEFL iBT test will be conducted through a computer. So you will have to read the passage on a computer screen. And this, of course, can be challenging for people who are not very accustomed to reading on a computer screen. And what the effect of that lack of habits in reading on a computer screen is that you can read slower if you're not used to it. Okay, and also remember that on the IBT reading section, you will see the passage on your right, and then the questions will be on the left. Okay, now let's take a look at the key strategies. How to tackle the reading section of the TOEFL iBT. Strategy number 1, set up your computer area for reading. So you will be provided with a set of computer along with a keyboard, a headphone, and then a mouse pad, scratch paper, and pencils. Now, in the reading section, you will not need the keyboard. Okay, so you can move that out of your way so that you won't be distracted by it. And focus on positioning your mouse close to you as comfortably as you can so that you can easily navigate through the screens, clicking the buttons and scrolling up and down. And the headphones will not be relevant for this section, so you can put it aside as well. The scratch paper and the pencils will be pretty important. You will see later a strategy where you will need the pencil and the scratch paper to help you manage your self in answering the reading questions. Okay, now strategy number 2. At the beginning of the each of the passage, or the set they call it, before you go on to the questions, it will be helpful for you to read some parts, key parts in the passage to get the main idea of the passage before you see the questions. Okay, and you can do this by paying special attention to the title, the headings. Sorry, this is not headings. This is the first sentence in the paragraph. And also the last sentence of the paragraphs, because normally the main ideas will be given in those parts of the passage. Okay, and don't worry, you will be able to see the passage again next to the question later after you click next to see the first question. Okay, now the third strategy is on dealing with the vocabulary questions. So the idea with the vocabulary question is for you to answer quickly as you can. So how do you do that? If you are sure of the meaning of the word and you can easily identify the answer directly, even without reading the passage, then you should do that. Okay, so you should answer the question right away if you are familiar with the word. And if you, of course, if you are sure with the answer. Now, why do you need to do that? If you can answer the vocabulary question quickly, you will have spare time from that question that you can use in other more challenging questions. Okay. Now, sometimes, however, we will get vocabulary that we are not very familiar with. Now, if that's the case, then you need to try to guess the meaning of the word from the context. Remember context? The surrounding sentences where the word is located. Okay, so, and then it can also help you if you identify the word form or the class of the word. So here, for example, accumulation is a noun. So you can easily eliminate options that are not a noun. For example, decrease. Decrease is not a noun. So that will be unlikely the correct answer. All right. And also pattern. So it's either collection or change. And remember, before the test, improve your academic vocabulary. Okay. Now, you can do this by using flashcards, the conventional physical flashcard, the paper flashcard. But nowadays, there are many digital applications or websites that can help you do that without having to print out, cut papers, etc. For example, the applications such as Quizlet, or I believe there are many other similar applications that you can find out and use to practice improving your academic vocabulary. Now, you need to also focus on academic words. And here, there is a list of academic words that has been developed by Avril Coxhat at Victoria University of Wellington, New Zealand. And this list consists of 570 academic vocabulary items that are based on research and studies conducted by Coxhat, commonly used in university setting. And also, you can invest time to improve your academic vocabulary by reading academic materials and then learning the new vocabulary you find during that practice. Okay, now here's a little bit of an academic vocabulary exercise for you. So choose the best synonym for the word. Okay, that would be the instruction. And then try to guess the meaning of the word from the context. So that's the clue for you. And this is also, remember, a very important strategy to improve your vocabulary. Okay, you don't have to rely to the dictionaries all the time. If you are reading something and you want to improve your vocabulary at the same time, you can try to guess the meaning of the word you don't know by looking at the sentence around the word. Okay, and don't forget to also pay attention to the word form. Okay, so those are your clues to answer these exercise. Now, here's the first one. So, what is the best synonym for the word circumstance? Use the word form and the context to help you identify the answer. You can pause the video if you'd like additional time to answer the question. So, what do you think is the answer? All right, now, so circumstance is a noun. And here from the options, we see that the first one, alternative, is not a noun, it's an adjective. So that might not be the correct answer. B, condition, is a noun. So words ending the suffix "ion" is usually a noun. Fag is also a noun, and option is also a noun. So which do you think is the correct one? B, C, or D? Now, let's still take a look at the context to help us guess the meaning. So the circumstance forced the company to close one of its factories. So this thing makes a company close one of its factories. What can possibly make a company close their factory? Is it a fact? So let's try to put it there. The fact forced the company to close one of its factories doesn't sound very sensical, does it? It might not be the answer. So option, let's go with option. The option forced the company to close one of, that doesn't also sound very suitable. Let's try B, condition. The condition forced the company to close one of its factories. Yes, that sounds very sensical. So the best synonym for this is condition. All right. So that's how you should try to guess the meaning of a word, especially when you are doing the vocabulary question on the reading section of the TOEFL iBT. Now let's continue with the second. Okay, let's take a look at the second one. Dominate. So it's a verb. And which of these options do you think is the best synonym for the word? Again, you can pause the video to try to answer the question. All right, so what do you think is the correct answer? Okay, now let's see. So it's a verb. Therefore, you need to first identify the word forms of these options. And unfortunately, all of them, except for C, are verbs. So we can eliminate C. We have only 3 options. Now, it's time to guess the meaning from the context. So here, the example sentence is, they work as a group. No one person is allowed to dominate. So when you work as a group, that means that there's no only one person dominating. So dominating here means like you are kind of controlling everything on your own. So that makes the answer D. All right. Now, the third one. What do you think is the best synonym? Okay, so what is it? Let's see. So it's a noun. And from the options here, all of them are nouns. So let's try to guess from the context. It's too early to predict the outcome of the meeting. It's too early to predict. So outcome is something that you predict. Let's see, I see. Okay, can you predict the task? So it's too early to predict the task of the meeting. It doesn't sound very sensical. Sequence. Sequence means the order of something. And here it's just a meeting. It's not a set of meeting. Instance can mean an example. So the example of the meeting that doesn't very sound right. Now, what about consequence? Consequence is like what happens after something. So if outcome is what happens after the meeting, then that makes sense. Therefore, the best synonym perhaps is D. All right, now let's do another one. And this time you need to choose the best definition for the word. Okay. And here is a little bit of a tip to help you. So again, try to guess the meaning of the word from the context, from the sentence, and then also pay attention to the word form. Okay, let's start with the first one. Sufficient. It's an adjective. And here, the example context. The supply was sufficient to support the people through the crisis. What do you think is the best definition for the word? You can pause the video to think before answering. Are you ready to answer now? And what do you think? Okay, let's see. Sufficient means enough or adequate. So you can see from the context, the supply was enough to support the people through the crisis. All right, the next one is justify. It's a verb, and here the context, the university will not justify any forms of plagiarism. So if you are trying to use the context to guess the meaning, you can see that plagiarism is something that university will not justify. University will not justify plagiarism. So what does university do or react towards plagiarism? What do you think is the answer? Let's find out. Yes, so justify means to show or prove something to be right or reasonable, okay? And of course, plagiarism is not something right or reasonable. All right, the last word, negate. It's a verb. And here from the context, we see the celebrity's years of good reputation were negated by the single scandal. So what do you think is the best definition? And yeah, so negate means nullify or make something ineffective, lose its meaning or use, or when an existence of something is denied. That's what negate means. Okay, so keep on practicing by answering vocabulary exercises like this to help you improve your vocabulary knowledge. Okay, now moving on to strategy number 4. Strategy number 4 is dealing with the reference question. So remember, reference question will ask you to identify what pronouns or grammatical references, such as a few here, or which, or this, that, those. So what those words mean or refer to in the passage. And to answer this, you need to look back. Look back. The reference will usually be behind the pronouns. Okay. And then don't forget to make sure that your choices agree with the pronoun. And you can see that usually from the number, whether it's singular or plural. For example, they here means it will be something more than one. So several scientists will be suitable for that description. And also gender can help. So he or she. So here, for example, he refers to a man named Gabriel Mouton. All right. Strategy number 5, use the arrow. So most of the time, when the question, for especially the factual information question, it will already help you by providing you with the arrow to quickly identify the paragraph. Okay. And it's normally also directly shown on the screen when the question appears. So you don't need to scroll up and down to find the paragraph. And again, use the arrow to confirm. Look for the answer in the specified paragraph. So if the question says in paragraph 2, then 99%, even 100%, the answer will be in that paragraph. Don't waste your time by looking for the answer in other paragraphs that are not indicated in the question. Strategy number 6, choose the best keyword to scan for information. So remember, scanning is very, very helpful to help you find the information you need in the passage quickly. Okay, so in order to scan, of course, first you need a keyword to look for in the passage, right? To scan for in the passage. So how do you identify these keywords? Okay, well, here are some clues for you. So if the question is asking about who or where, then the keyword is most likely effectively going to be names. Okay, and this is usually indicated with a capital letter. All right. Now, if it's asking when, how much, or how long, this will be something related to numbers. So you need to scan for numbers in the passage. And finally, if the questions are using the keywords what, why, or how, then this is usually require you to combine the keyword with a key part in the question. For example, here you can see for the question what, you can pair it with skeleton, okay, as the keyword to help you find and locate the information. All right, moving on. Strategy number 7 is the triple S strategy. So the triple S strategy will be a strategy that you will use a lot in the reading section. And this is especially useful for the factual and negative factual information questions. So what does this triple S strategy mean? Well, the first S will be selecting a keyword. So you need to select the keyword from the question usually to help you look for the information in the passage. Example, the keyword will be camel for this question. Now, after you select the keyword, you need to scan for the keyword in the passage. Okay, so scan, remember, reading fast, ignoring unknown or difficult words to find the keyword. So you can do it like this, read fast, look for camel, the keyword, camel. All right, there it is. So once you find the keyword location, you can then do the last S, which is skim. Read the surrounding sentences for the information. And remember, skimming is to read fast to get the main point of that part of passage. All right, so let's read the surrounding sentences of the keyword. So if you read very focused in this part of the passage, you'll be able to find the information that camel is efficient and make traversing the desert more accessible. Therefore, you get the answer that camels were important because it made it cheaper, more efficient, and easier to access the desert, which is the Sahara. All right, so that's the triple S strategy. Very important one. Now, strategy number 8 is to deal with the prose summary question. So remember, you need to choose 3 of the important points, usually the major points, and anticipate the minor points, okay? And remember that the minor points and the information or ideas that are not in the passage will be the distractors, the 3 other distractors in the option. So you can eliminate the minor points to get a better chance of identifying the major ones. Now, The ninth strategy is to draw logical conclusion, especially for inference questions. Okay, so what you need to do is, the first one, you need to keep in mind that the information is not something directly stated. Okay, you will not exactly find this information. Okay, because it will be implied, it will be hidden, you know. So you need to make conclusion as if you're a detective trying to solve a crime. You use the evidence, in this case, the the supporting information to make the conclusion. Okay, and you can do that by identifying the relationship between the facts, and also be careful of false and unpresented piece of information. Okay, like this example, we can draw the conclusion that if there's a liquid water on Mars, it would be very small in quantity or amount. Okay, now the 10th strategy. For the insert text question, you need to study the connecting words. All right. Now, you might ask, what is the connecting word? Well, the connecting words are usually the first word in the bold sentence. So here in the example, the connecting word would be these people. All right. Now, beside this, the connecting words can be pronouns, such as he, she, this, which, and so on. It can also be transition words or phrases, such as on the other hand, furthermore, first, next, therefore, and so on. Okay. And you need to check the logical connection between the sentence, okay, and the sentences before and after the place where you would like to put it, or where you think the sentence would best fit, right? So here's the example. The answer to this question will be in this place, because we see the connecting word is these people, and this is relevant. There is a logical connection between these people and people mentioned in the previous sentence. And another connecting word would be linguistic here. So here, linguistic is logically connected to the word language in the following sentence, making it the best place to put the sentence. All right. Okay. Now, the next strategy, break down the complex sentence into simple ones for restatement questions. So remember, in the restatement question, you need to choose which from the option best restates the idea in the highlighted sentence. Okay, now to do this, you should divide the highlighted sentence into simpler forms. Here's an example. So imagine I want to divide this sentence into simpler forms to get the key ideas. So it will look like this. So from this long, complex sentence, the key ideas are broken down to 3. Okay. Now, after you break down the complex sentence into simpler forms, you can easily compare it and check it against the options. And here, if you read it carefully, you can identify that that's the best way or the best sentence to restate the main ideas, the same main idea from the highlighted sentence. Okay, the next strategy is to make an intelligent guess. Never leave a question blank. There is no penalty for wrong answers in the reading and listening sections of the TOEFL iBT. So the worst mistake, the biggest mistake you could do is leaving a blank question. All right. So never leave any of the question blank. Now, if you are, if you have no idea or you're not sure which is the correct answer from a question, then you should use the elimination strategy. So you do this by eliminating as many answer choices as possible. So if you can see one from the four option is clearly wrong, you can eliminate that so that you have higher chance of guessing the correct one. Okay, and if you have spent too long for one question and you're not still sure about the correct answer, you can just guess and then write down the number of the questions so that later when you have spare time, you can go back to that question to try to have a better and more sure of an answer. The 13th strategy, use the review screen efficiently. Now, remember, you will be able to click the review button on your screen to see the review screen like this. Now, you shouldn't bother doing that in the beginning up to the middle part of the reading section because it won't help you that much. It is mostly beneficial and helpful at the end. So use it at the end after you finish the last question so that you can check whether you have an answer that you haven't attempted, or you can also use the screen to navigate to the challenging questions that you write on your note to use your spare time to redo. And the last strategy is, of course, to practice, practice, and practice. There are many practice test material that you can access online. You can either buy these practice tests or look for free downloadable sources on the internet and do plenty of them to make sure that you're ready before you take the real test. And don't forget to apply the strategies that we have learned together in this course. And when you are practicing, keep a note of your challenges. And as the test day is approaching, focus on tackling those challenges. All right. Now, finally, the performance descriptor for the reading section. So what does your score say about your proficiency level? Let's take a look. Now, from the reading section, you can get into the advanced level if your score range from 24 to 30. Okay. And this means that you could answer 80 to 100% of the questions correctly. So this means that your reading skill level is in the C1 of the CFR. And C1 is the 5th level. It's the second level from the top. So it's starting from A1 up to A2, B1, B2, C1, and C2. So C2 is the highest level, and C1 is the one under C2. And if your score is 29 or 30, then that may mean that you are likely to be at the C2 level. So what does this mean? If you're in the advanced level, it shows that you can understand academic passages in English at the introductory university level. Okay, and these kinds of academic passages are usually dense with propositions or ideas and information, and it includes difficult vocabulary. It's long, it's complex and abstract, and the ideas are nuanced and it can be presented in complex ways. Okay. And furthermore, it shows that you can understand academic and low frequency vocabulary, can understand the connection between the information and inferences in the passage. It shows that you can also recognize the expository organization of a passage, the purpose of why specific information used in the passage. It also means that you can follow a paragraph-length argument, which involves speculation, qualifications, counter evidence, and so on. You can synthesize information in passages. So it's showing that the proficiency is high, and you should be proud of yourself if you can get into this level. Now, the level under the advanced is the high intermediate level. And this level is for test takers whose score is 18 to 23, which means that they could answer 50 to 79% of the questions correctly. Okay, and it is indicated as a B2 level in the CEFR. So the difference is between the high intermediate and the advanced level is basically in how much you can understand from the reading. So the advanced means you can understand almost all of the entire main ideas and information from the passage, but high intermediate means most, not as complete as the advanced level. And the low intermediate level is for those whose score is from 4 to 17, meaning they could only answer 10 to 49% of the correct answer. And your CFR level will be in B1 if you are in the low intermediate level. Okay, and this level shows that a test taker could only understand some main ideas. Okay, and they're having a limited overall understanding. They could understand connections between two or more sentences, but only if the relationships are clear and simple. If the passage becomes denser or more complex, it will present difficulty for them. And the lowest level will be the below low intermediate level. And this is for those whose score is 0 to 3. And this simply means that the test takers have not demonstrated proficiency at the low intermediate level. All right, so that's the end of the lesson. Thank you very much for joining me in this second lesson of ours in the TOEFL iBT preparation course, and I'll see you in the next one.